Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways, Coyote in the Highlands. We have a Twitter post for a topic today, and it is normalize forgiving people their trespasses. And that's a really interesting one. Now, for me, the biblical phrasing doesn't always work so well. In this case, it's actually a pretty good one. It's a reasonable biblical phrasing. It doesn't have any problems for me. Normalize means, it's a suggestion. It's a modern meme suggestion. Hey, make this normal. Hey, make this a thing. Make this a social convention. Forgiving people their trespasses. Forgiveness is not a lack of consequences or a lack of personal security or anything. Forgiveness just means forgiveness. The important bit here is to remember that forgiveness starts inside you. Inside you. I made that 2 words. That's a little weird. Forgiveness starts inside you, which means forgiveness starts with yourself. So normalize forgiving yourself your own trespasses. This is actually a really interesting one, and it takes about 60 to 90 seconds, maybe 45 seconds as you get better with it, in the morning to do this. Before you get out of bed or whatever, it depends on how bad you have to pee, right? So right there in that first couple minutes of being awake, take that moment, pause, close your eyes, think of 2 things, 3 things, 4 things. Don't make a big list of things that you can forgive yourself for. Trespasses against others, trespasses against yourself, breakages of trust. You can go over and over with stuff that hasn't gone away, hasn't been resolved yet. But don't make it the same list every day, because then it just gets old and stale and loses its effect. But practice forgiveness of yourself. This is the biggest first step on the forgiveness train. Okay. This is a little bit weird and not necessarily counter, but kind of orthogonal or different if you're practicing the Levinson love technique, because that's when you're talking about transforming all of your experiences, memories, everything to love, to a loving memory, and that includes trespasses. So that gets from forgiveness to love, which again does not mean that you have to give in to any evil or anything. People have a lot of ego attachment to being right or to punishment of others or something. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to be a chump, okay? But it means that you have to forgive, and then if you're practicing the Lester stuff, then that transform that to love. They're a little bit different, but you could start with forgiveness if you can't reach love. In any event, forgiveness starts with yourself, so forgive yourself. Stop, take that minute. It's not going to be a 10-minute process. It's not a huge meditation. Just find a couple of lists of things and either feel forgiveness if you know the feeling, if you know what it's like, or say it. Saying it in your head is great. Saying it, writing it down, and reading it is like the big thing. If you engage all of your brain, your whole neural structure, then it works better. So saying it silently is like the baby step. Saying it out loud is a bigger step. If you happen to have a notebook or a phone or something handy, while you're doing your morning pee, you can say, type in a note, keep notes, I forgive myself for, and then read it out loud. That's actually a really good thing. If you handwrite it, it's actually a little bit more muscular neural. So there's actually a slightly, I don't know if there's research that indicates that thumb typing is significantly less neuromuscular group engaging than handwriting, but I suspect that when they look at the benefits of handwriting and then reading, because this is research, that they didn't do a group of thumb typing, and I suspect that there's slightly less engagement because you're using more visual for the keyboard and less muscular, maybe. These are details where at this point I think we're talking about 1 or 2%. But forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Now, if you want to add to that, then of course you can forgive some other people for other stuff. Do that a couple times throughout the day, just when you're stopped and paused. Now, if you add all the things that I've got up together, we're talking a couple hours of your day, and that's, makes your life better. It's a couple hours you're not on Netflix, which is actually good for you. maybe a couple hours where you're not overdoing your social media stimulation. That's good for you too. So, but yeah, a couple times throughout the day. So the morning thing, you know, forgive yourself. Like just, it's just something to do in the morning. Morning's just a time. It's just a time to, when people don't have a whole lot of distractions going on yet, except when you have to pee really bad or your mouth tastes like dirt or whatever. So it's not hard to squeeze a couple things in there. Forgive others. Forgive people their trespasses. So, on the one hand, I've turned this into the self. Forgive yourself, because I think that's very important. You have to do that at some point. Okay, some point. Now, in terms of forgiveness, a couple times a day, not every hour, on the hour, whatever, but try to find 2-3 times every day. And forgive, think of one thing, 2 things. Don't go on a big list. 1 thing, 2 things. If you've got a flow and you want to do 4 or 5, or you turns into a meditation, go run with it, right? But in terms of like making this a system, a mechanical habit that will help you, 1 thing or 2 things that aren't going to upset you too much, right? And just forgive people. Say, hey, I forgive X for this thing that I interpreted or that I felt was wrong, or that was objectively wrong, if that's your belief system, you know. Because one of the reasons to phrase it this way, let me back into details again, to phrase it like, I forgive Alice for being rude, being what I perceived as rude to me in lines yesterday. Okay, that's fine. You're shifting it from her being rude to you perceiving, my perception of her being rude, or, you know, my perception of her stealing from me. It may be an objective fact that she stole from me, but I want you to phrase it in a way that you take control of creative responsibility for your perceptions, okay? If you can't do that, don't do that. Just make it objective. Put it outside of yourself, okay? But if you can, realize that your perception isn't reality. There is no one-sided objective reality. There's only multivariable objective realities. That's kind of what we call a shared reality. So your perception is always the big key, okay? I've actually known people who've had, my friend stole from me and this was horrible and everything, and they completely forgot that there was actually an agreement involved and that the terms of the agreement were not terribly clear, and the other person interpreted it as, this is a gift, not a loan, you know, $20 or something. But people do that with $5,000, $8,000 deals too. They just don't ever specify that, make sure everyone's perception is in line, and that really hurts people a lot. So I've seen it where it's not an objective reality, it's actually a perception difference. So a lot of pastoral, and in this sense I mean pastoral, inside a church or something, arbitration agreements are actually based on what amounts to misunderstandings and perception. Much better system to handle things than going to a small claims court in many cases, but not the topic of the video. So forgive people their trespasses once or twice a day. Just get this somewhere in there. Lunchtime, snack time, whatever. Set your alarm timer. Forgive someone some trespass. And try to remember that your perception, try to phrase it so that your perception is involved, okay? Take responsibility for your perception, for your mental activity around the topic. Do that. Also, again, it's a really good idea to write it down and read it out loud. Type it out and read it out loud, even if you're doing it in a bathroom stall or something, like, you know, or you're doing it quietly. The louder is better, not yelling, but speaking at a regular tone of voice, like actually engaging everything. Whispering is fine. It depends on your job. It depends on what your day is like. It depends on if you have a job. Like, I don't know, you know. If you're in a crowded Walmart line and this is your moment to do it because you've got some time, then whisper it under your breath, or risk other people perceiving you perceiving other people perceiving you as crazy, Or the people starting a conversation being like, what are you doing? And you explaining, hey, yeah, I'm making the world better. And then you have an opportunity to actually share that if you so desire. Silent is fine. Whatever method works. If you have to just think about it, don't just think about it. Make the words, make the sentence, even if you have to read it in the screen of your mind when you close your eyes, sub-vocalize it. Make it engage the language temporal centers of your brain that handle this stuff, because that'll help a lot. This is brain training. This isn't self-awareness stuff yet. This is brain training and positivity. So that's it. Do it. Forgive other people their trespasses. Try to do it in the moment when you actually remember. That's always a good trick, but once, twice a day, do it. Okay? Stay sideways.